Story 1. The House with No Porch Light. The delivery note said, "Leave at door. Do not knock." When I pulled up, the porch light turned on by itself, and the door was already open just a few inches, like it had been waiting for me to arrive. I was running late on a weekday route that I could usually finish on autopilot, the kind that winds through quiet suburbs where every house looks like the previous one, just with different lawn decorations and different versions of the same barking dog. By the time I reached the last cluster of stops, the sun had gone down and the streetlights had that weak orange glow that makes everything look slightly unreal. The address was normal, but the map pin was set a little off the road, like it was trying to drag me toward the side of the property instead of the front entrance. I parked anyway, grabbed the package and walked up the path, listening to my own footsteps because the neighborhood was too quiet for that hour. No TV noise through windows, no music, no distant conversations, not even a car passing. Halfway up the walkway, my handheld scanner vibrated with a new instruction. It wasn't from dispatch. It was a single line, displayed like a customer note, except there was no name attached. "Back door." I stopped. I hadn't touched anything. I hadn't requested an update. The package label didn't mention a rear entrance. Still, the message sat there like it belonged. I glanced at the front door. It was painted a dark color that ate the light, and it was cracked open, just enough to show a thin line of darkness inside. The porch light above it flickered once, as if it had been switched, then stabilized. I backed down a step and looked for any movement inside the house. Nothing. No silhouette, no shifting shadow, just blackness and the faint smell of damp wood, like a basement after rain. The scanner buzzed again. Now. A cold tension crept into my shoulders. I told myself the system sometimes glitches.
Addresses sometimes have saved notes that show up late, but the timing felt personal, as if someone was watching my hesitation and responding to it. I decided to do what the original note said. Leave at door. No knock, no questions. I stepped forward, placed the package neatly on the welcome mat, and took the proof of delivery photo. My screen displayed the image for review. In the photo, the door wasn't cracked open. It was wide open. Not only that, but the interior wasn't dark. The picture showed a long hallway lined with framed photos, a warm lamp glow at the far end, and a figure standing in the distance, facing away from the camera. I stared at the screen until my eyes hurt. Then I looked up at the actual doorway again. It was still cracked open, and the inside was still pitch black. My hands went numb. I hit retake and snapped another picture. The second photo showed the same warm hallway, the same frames, and the figure had moved, closer this time, as if it had taken a step during the fraction of a second between shots. I didn't wait for a third. I backed away from the door, keeping my eyes on that thin gap. I wanted to run, but running makes you loud, and loud makes you noticeable, and suddenly I had the overwhelming sense that being noticed was the worst possible outcome. When I reached the sidewalk, my scanner buzzed one more time. "Thank you for coming in." I got into my van and locked the doors with shaking fingers. The engine started on the first try, which felt like a mercy. I pulled away without turning on the cabin light because I couldn't shake the fear that if I lit up the inside, I'd see a reflection in the glass that shouldn't be there. At the end of the street, I checked the delivery status to reassure myself that at least the system was normal. The stop was marked complete, but the proof of delivery photo attached to the record wasn't of a package on a mat.
It was a photo from inside a hallway, taken from the perspective of someone standing within the house, looking outward. Centered in the frame,
perfectly in focus, was my own face, staring into the camera with an expression I didn't recognize, like a tired smile that had been practiced too long. I deleted the photo. I deleted the record. I told myself it would be fine. Then my scanner buzzed again, even though I was already miles away. Next delivery, back door. And under it, in smaller text, as if it were a reminder I had agreed to, do not knock. Story 2. Apartment 4B doesn't exist. I delivered to that building every week, and there was never a fourth floor. So when the elevator display flashed 4 and the doors opened to a hallway that smelled like wet paper, I realized the route had added a stop that the building itself didn't recognize. It was a late-night food delivery, the kind I only took because the tip was decent and I was already out. The customer name was a single letter, the address was valid, and the notes were blank. That should have been my first warning, because most people in big apartment complexes leave some kind of instruction. Gate code, side entrance, call when outside. This one was too clean. The lobby of the building was modern and overlit, with a security camera above the mailboxes and a fake plant in the corner that had collected dust in its plastic leaves. The concierge desk was empty. A small sign said, "No visitors after 10 p.m., but it was nearly 11:30, and the door had let me in without a code, as if someone had buzzed me up remotely. I found the elevator, stepped in, and pressed 3, because I knew the building. 3 floors, long hallways, beige doors with identical mats. The elevator doors closed, and the car began to rise with a soft mechanical hum. The display showed 2, then 3. It should have stopped. Instead, it continued upward, the hum deepening, and the display blinked. My stomach tightened. I pressed 3 again, then the door button. Nothing responded. The elevator felt suddenly heavier, as if it had sunk into thicker air. When the doors opened, the lighting outside was dimmer than it should have been. The hallway carpet was older, a darker color, damp at the edges, as if it had been mopped and never dried. The air smelled like wet cardboard and something faintly metallic, like old coins. No music from apartments, no TV sound, no footsteps. The hall was silent in a way that felt staged. My delivery app chimed. New note, leave it at 4B. There was no 4 floor on the call box downstairs. There was no 4 button for residents to press from outside. Yet here I was, staring at doors labeled 4A, 4B, 4C, each one with a plain brass number that looked freshly polished. I stepped out, keeping my movements slow. My shoes made no sound on the carpet, which was wrong. Even thick carpet gives you something. This swallowed noise like a mouth. I found 4B halfway down. The door had no peephole, no doormat, just the number and a narrow seam of darkness at the threshold. I raised my hand to knock, then remembered the lack of instructions and the building's quiet warning sign downstairs. I decided to set the bag down and take a photo, like usual. When I crouched, my phone screen went black for a second, then returned, but the camera view was wrong. It wasn't showing the door, it was showing me from a high angle, like a security camera view, my head bent, my hand holding the food. I jerked upright and looked around for a camera. Nothing. I tried to switch the camera mode. The screen flickered and the view changed to the end of the hallway where the elevator doors were. Except the elevator doors weren't there anymore. In their place was a blank wall, painted the same color as everything else, with a faint rectangular outline as if a door had been removed and sealed over. My throat went tight.
I spun back toward 4B, suddenly convinced that the only exit was behind me.
The door to 4B was open now, just a crack, the way a person opens a door to listen without revealing themselves. From inside came a low sound, like someone breathing too close to a microphone. My phone vibrated with another note. Don't look back. I didn't want to follow it. I didn't want to obey something I hadn't agreed to obey. But the fear that flooded me was older than thought. I set the food down, snapped a photo without checking it, and stepped away from the door. I walked forward, eyes fixed on the carpet pattern, refusing to turn my head toward the sealed wall behind me, refusing to confirm what my brain was already screaming. As I reached the end of the hall, where the stairs should have been, I saw them. A stairwell door, slightly ajar, with a bright white light spilling through. Relief hit so hard, I nearly laughed. I pushed through and stumbled into a normal stairwell. Concrete steps, white painted walls, a buzzing fluorescent light, the ordinary smell of cleaning solution. I ran down to the 3rd floor, then the 2nd, then the lobby. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped my phone. Outside, the air felt real again, cold and sharp. I got into my car, locked the doors, and opened the app to confirm the delivery. The order was gone. Not canceled, not completed. Gone, like it had never existed. Then a new order popped up on my screen by itself, with no alert tone, no request sound, no timestamp. And in the notes, a single line. You left too fast. Story 3. The package that kept coming back. I scanned the label 3 times, watched the system mark it delivered, and drove away. When I returned to the depot at the end of my route, the same box was waiting on my cart, damp like it had just come in from rain, and the label now showed my home address as the destination. It started as an ordinary parcel, the kind you don't remember 5 minutes after you drop it. Medium-sized box, taped neatly, no hazmat markings, no special handling, nothing fragile.
The only detail that stuck out was the weight. It was heavier than it should have been for its size, like it was packed with something dense. The address was on my route, a residential house near the edge of town where the streetlights got sparse and the houses had longer driveways. Customer signature not required. Leave at door. I parked, grabbed the box, and walked up. The porch light was off, but the moon was bright enough to show me the steps. I set the box down, took the photo, scanned, delivered, and that was it. Except when I turned back toward the van, I heard a sound behind me, soft but distinct, like cardboard shifting. I looked over my shoulder. The box was still on the porch, exactly where I'd left it. Nothing moved. I told myself I'd imagined it. Delivery work makes you hyper-aware. You hear things. You invent patterns. I went back to my van, climbed in, and drove off. 2 blocks later, my handheld scanner buzzed with a status update I had never seen before. Delivery unconfirmed. Below it, in smaller text, return to door. My stomach tightened. The system sometimes glitches, but it didn't usually get this specific. I pulled over, opened the delivery record, and saw the photo I'd taken. It wasn't of a box on a porch. It was of an empty porch, the steps bare, the mat visible, no package anywhere. The timestamp matched my scan. The GPS coordinates matched the house. But the box was missing, like it had never existed in the frame. I drove back, trying to keep calm. When I pulled into the driveway again, the porch light was on, and the box was there. Same spot, same tape, same label. Only now the cardboard looked darker at the corners,
as if it had absorbed moisture. I climbed the steps and crouched, staring at it, and I noticed something that made my hands go cold. The label's destination address was the same, but the recipient name had changed. It was my name. First and last, printed cleanly as if the system had always intended it. I backed away from the box like it could bite. I scanned it again, hoping the device would reject it, throw an error, anything. It accepted the scan with a cheerful beep. Delivered. My scanner screen briefly flickered, and for a second I saw a different message overlay the delivery confirmation. Handoff complete. I swallowed hard and forced myself to leave. I didn't take the box. I didn't touch it again. I went back to my van and drove away without looking in the mirrors. The rest of my route blurred. I kept expecting the scanner to buzz again, to pull me back, but it stayed quiet. By the time I returned to the depot, it was close to midnight, the building mostly dark except for the loading bay and the office. I parked, unloaded, and started stacking returns and undelivered parcels. The air inside the depot smelled like diesel and tape and dust, familiar enough to be comforting. That's when I saw the box. It was on my cart, sitting between two ordinary packages like it belonged there. Same damp corners, same tape pattern, same size and weight. I stood frozen, staring at it until the fluorescent lights above me seemed to hum louder. I walked closer, unwillingly, and read the label. Destination, my home address. Recipient, my full name. Special instruction, leave at door. My throat tightened. I looked around the depot. No one else was in the bay. The office door was closed, light off. The building was quiet except for the distant rattling of an HVAC unit. My scanner buzzed once, softly, like a polite reminder. Final stop added. And below it, one line that made my stomach drop. Don't knock. I didn't finish the shift. I left the cart where it was and walked out with my keys sweating in my hand. In the parking lot, my van looked ordinary, the way normal objects look when you desperately want them to anchor you. As I drove home, I kept the radio on loud, not for music, but to have a sound that belonged to me, not to the system. When I pulled into my driveway, my porch light was already on, and on my front steps, centered on the mat like a gift, sat a medium-sized box with damp corners. The label faced outward, perfectly readable in the porch light. Recipient, me. I stood in my car with the engine running, staring at it through the windshield, and I realized the worst part. It wasn't trying to deliver something to me. It was trying to prove that I was deliverable too.